We're live to Canberra, the Prime Minister holding a news conference alongside his Communications Minister.
Didn't want to stand in the way of national uniformity and regarded getting a uniform national decision and process was most important. Social media is doing social harm to our young Australians, and I am calling time on it. The safety and mental health of our young people has to be a priority. And my government will do all that we can to protect our young Australians, but also to provide support for parents and teachers who are dealing with these issues. I want Australian parents to know that we have your back. This legislation follows extensive consultation with states and territories over a considerable period of time, with parents and teachers, with young people, the work that went into the social media summits that were called in Sydney and Adelaide in recent weeks. Academics, child development experts, industry and civil organisations, First Nations organisations have all been consulted over a period of time because this is a difficult issue and we want to get it right. We want to say up front that this won't solve all of the problems, but what this will do is send a social message about what society thinks is appropriate going forward. And that will provide that assistance and support for this to be delivered. We will introduce legislation into the Parliament in the next sitting week, which is in just a fortnight's time. And we are hopeful of getting support for that legislation across the House of Representatives and the Senate. We'll work closely with stakeholders in the lead up to the commencement of the law, with a lead time of 12 months following the bill's passage to give industry, governments and the E-Safety Commissioner time to implement systems and processes. We will ensure as well that young Australians retain access to services that primarily provide education and health services and work constructively to make sure that that is able to be delivered. We see this as an issue that's above politics and we want to work across the political spectrum, as we did today, to receive support for our approach. This bill builds on my government's work to address online harms for young people. One of the discussions that we had with Premiers and Chief Ministers today was an analogy drawn between the banning of phones in classrooms and the feedback from that, controversial to some when it was introduced, is just overwhelmingly positive in the impact in making sure that students are concentrating on what's going on in their class and making sure as well that social interaction is improving. Kids are playing with each other at lunchtime instead of playing on their phones. That's a good thing. And the Victorian Premier today spoke about, wouldn't it be good with the consultation they've done extensively. We want young people involved in sport, in music, in talking to each other and interacting with each other on a face-to-face basis, and that will certainly make a difference. The key elements of the legislation, of course, are just 5. Set a minimum age of 16, establish an obligation on social media services, not parents or young people, to take reasonable steps to prevent age-restricted users from having an account. The third is the commencement in 12 months after the bill's passage. Fourth is the provision of exemptions to ensure that young Australians retain access to the services that they need. And fifthly, robust protections for personal information, privacy issues to be dealt with as well, with significant penalties for platforms that breach these provisions. We'll also include in the legislation a 2-year provision to assess the legislation. This is new ground. As new technology is changing our lives, governments have to respond. That's what we're doing. And this minister is leading that work in a way that is constructive. And I just pay tribute to Minister Rowland for the extraordinary work that she has done. I'm very proud to lead a government with the capacity that we have around the Cabinet room. There's no one better than Michelle Rowland, and I'd ask her to talk.